Oh, man, I'm looking out my window at my hotel here at the Texas Pinball Festival, and there's like a minor league baseball stadium in the distance. There's some traffic. I'm up too late. My feet are sore. Great day at the Texas Pinball Festival. Episode 221 of Coast to Coast Pinball is going to be an evening with George Gomez. Let's go. Welcome to Coast Pinball. My name is Nate Shivers. This is a podcast of commentary. Not much of a commentary tonight, and I don't need quarters at the Texas Pinball Festival. Tonight, this is an interview we did live in front of a crowd here at the Texas Pinball Festival with George Gomez, the Executive Vice President of Game Design at Stern Pinball, a all-time great game designer, and someone who has a lot to offer in terms of insight and anecdotes to pinball, game design, and just a great guy. So, was really looking forward to this, had a great time, and without further ado, let's jump into episode 221 of Coast to Coast Pinball, coming to you live, not live, Friday, March 18th, 2016, from the Texas Pinball Festival. George Gomez.
I don't take sponsors, but Double Danger Apparel gave me a cool sticker, so we got that going tonight. Welcome. How we all doing? Good? A lot of fun. Welcome. This is a live version of Coast to Coast Pinball with special guest George Gomez. Let's give George a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really good to be here.
George, when I was putting notes together for tonight, it's interesting, and somebody brought this up to me. You're not just a game designer. You're not just like a person out there building a machine. You are the Executive Vice President of Game Development for Stern Pinball, official title. But really what that means is you are the team leader for the group of people designing the majority of pinball machines in the world right now. Yeah. What's that journey from game designer to the boss been like for you?
Well, it's not a job I could do very well had I not been in the seats of those guys. So I've been really blessed and fortunate that I've been in game development all my professional career, and so I know a lot about the ins and outs, and I know a lot about the business and what it takes to make the games, and so I think it's it's a natural progression in the arc of sort of my career that I get to be doing this at this time, and so it's a lot of fun. I essentially touch every product that we make in some way. I influence the direction, and I work with the teams, and sometimes I even have to get my hands dirty. I like to get my hands dirty and help them out. The teams are always crunched. We're always trying to do a lot, and so it's a lot of fun to kind of jump in and get in there and help them.
For those of you that don't know, George has spent his entire career working in games and toys and pinball, basically. You've been a game designer, you've been a head engineer, a game engineer, executive producer for console video games as well. So it's really been all over the place. What's the day-to-day for you like at Stern now? Because there's been this big pinball resurgence. We've seen it. We're here. There's tons of people right behind us. What's day-to-day for George Gomez like now in 2016 at Stern Pinball?
Right. Well, in 2016, it starts pretty early. So I'm right now I'm the first guy in the building. 5 a.m. I get up at 4. 5 a.m.
You're just trying to beat Chicago traffic.
Yeah, I'm trying to beat Chicago traffic. I live downtown in the city, and my commute went from an hour and 15 minutes. If I leave to get there by 9 o'clock, it's an hour and 15 minutes. If I get up at 4 in the morning and walk out my apartment at 4:30, I'm at my desk in less than 30 minutes.
Wow.
So so I open up the building and I start out, and then I have I have a few hours of quiet time to do the work I have to do, and right around the time that people start getting into the factory, all of a sudden my day just kind of explodes. I deal with a lot of different elements. In some ways, it's kind of fun. It's the eye of the storm, So I have production issues that I have to deal with. I have the manufacturing guys knocking on my door about this, that, the other thing. We have a material shortage. Is there something we can do? Or there's a problem with some device that's not working the way it was designed, or there's some vendor problem with some part that's out of spec, or so there's all of those kind of problems that are kind of they're fun, they consume you, and then of course there's the element of running the teams. The teams all have schedules. The teams all work to a plan. And so there's a series of meetings to keep them on track. And so you come out of the Game of Thrones thing, and you go into Ghostbusters, and you come out of Ghostbusters, and you go into the next game, and I do all the deals for the external contractors. So there's sometimes there's putting together deal plans for those guys. There's some. I mean, it's really cool in some ways because there's so much different stuff. It's also a very full day. There's executive level stuff like strategy things with the company, what products we're going to develop. There's a lot of new initiatives, new directions for the company, different things that we're doing. There's of course the technology initiatives. The technology initiatives just soak up so much time because they're so challenging. Here's the introduction of a new thing is no one everybody always sees the finished product, but boy, the steps to going from an idea in somebody's head to something you can actually ship and produce reliably in quantity and for the right price is a real challenge.
One of the big changes, and you and I got to talk a little bit about this before when I got a chance to visit your new factory, and the new Stern facility is massive. I think it's 110,000 square feet. It's more than twice the size of the old facility, which I think also shows us that there is this growth and this opportunity. One of the things that we got to touch on is the shift of who's buying pinball machines.
Yeah.
Because for years you worked in an industry that was building a machine to sell to somebody to put in a location for somebody to put money in and make their income off that.
Yeah.
And now we see a large portion of games being sold to people to take home and put in the bedroom.
Right.
What's that like from you, both as a game designer and then now as the kind of the team leader for all the game designers? Do you think about that? Is that running through your heads as you design modern pinball machines?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's first of all, it's a huge challenge because we were a commercial business, and one of the things that happened is that the expectations were different. Quality expectations were different. The cost expectations, the material expectations, what the game was, expectations were different. Games were put on the street in order to make money, and an operator operated them. And if an operator, there were no unboxing parties. There was no one calling you because there was like a greasy handprint on the underside of the cabinet. But now there is because God forbid, and
yeah.
so I think that the expectations have shifted not only in what when a game is on the street, it's all about how do I entertain people in 3.5 minutes, and how do I get them to coin up again and keep doing that. When a game is in your home, it's a lot like playing your Xbox. It's a different experience because you want this, you want to be told the story, you want to evolve and did I lose my mic?
Did his mic die? His mic died. We need another microphone. If we could grab that. Hold on. Here, you talk.
Out of batteries or something? Yeah. So I think the game experience in a lot of ways, the quality expectations, the materials and the processes that we have to select in order to make games for the modern world are a lot different than what we chose in the 90s. In the 90s, if an operator got a game and there was a scratch in the wall of the inside of the cabinet from him lifting, somebody putting the playfield in and out, he had a can of black spray paint in his toolbox and he took
Sure.
care of it. He never called you or anything, right? But today we're making something that is
Collectible.
Yeah, it's a consumer product, so the expectations are different because when you take your when you take your Samsung TV out of the box, it's perfect. And so the expectation for for our product now all of a sudden has become that. So one of my challenges, one of the things that I've faced is that I have to transition all of the processes and the material choices and how we design the physical elements of the game to reflect a consumer product as opposed to a product that somebody operated.
Stern, I know, has some employees who've been there a long time. Is that hard for you to sort of lead them down this road of, I know that used to be good enough, but now we need to do it better or different?
I think everybody's sort of, I think people picked up on it pretty quickly. All you have to do is our quality meetings are, we look at everything. We look at what the tech service guys are getting calls on, we read what you guys are saying on the forums. We look at all the stuff. So we're very aware of the perception and how things are being done or how things are being perceived. And so we know when we have issues and we have to kind of try to address them. It's a question of, you have, like I said, you have sometimes a technology that was designed in 1960, say a playfield technology. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a spinner or whatever, right? And it still pretty much looks that way and feels that way and works that way. And yet, in today's world, the aesthetic expectations of that device are completely different. Because when you, like I said, all the consumer products you interact with are a much higher level of fit and finish, much higher level of performance.
Do you guys at Stern internally look at this new kind of uprising of independent small companies who are building games out there, sometimes just maybe dozens of games? Do you look at those games and see it as competition, see it as a way to learn to do things differently? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, okay, yeah. I think if I remember right, we have like 92% of the pinball market.
Sure,
so it's really hard to convince. It's hard to imagine them as competition.
Sure.
Do we look at what they're doing? Yeah, we look at what they're doing. We are interested in the fact that there's a resurgence in pinball, and that people are paying attention, and that people are liking different things. I think that the only time that stuff bothers me is when when people spend money and they don't get something that they paid for.
Sure.
And that hurts everybody. That hurts me. That hurts our business.
There's no upside there at all.
No.
Yeah.
So if a garage shop, takes money and can't deliver, it impacts everybody. It impacts me. It impacts because it's money that essentially evaporated.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't there to buy my pinball machine either. So it's a really, really, and that's the one thing I've seen in the last 3 or 4 years that has been truly disturbing to me.
Yeah, absolutely. What are your thoughts on the current Stern model of releasing 2 or possibly 3 versions of a title, where you have your pro game, you have your premium game, and then you have your limited edition game? And we know those are sort of aimed at your pro, maybe is aimed sort of mainly at your operators, or maybe is your affordable version of a title. Premium obviously is fully fleshed out, and then your LE is aimed at your collectors, your hardcores on a title, or people looking to really buy in deep into a certain theme.
Well, it's how do I look at it? It's a double-edged sword. It's a very nice piece of business, but it's from a product development standpoint, it's incredibly challenging. My design teams are essentially generating, in some cases, 3 distinct art packages. Sometimes it's 2.5. My development teams are most definitely creating 2 code bases. Even if one is derivative. My engineers are creating, an entire, extra set of mechanisms, and my game designers are designing 2 playfields. So when you guys have to realize that, in the 90s we did that. Those same design teams did 1 game and they did it over the course of a 12-month period. And we're churning a lot of work. We are doing a tremendous amount of work to get this done. But at the same time, it's hard to argue with the economics of it. It's helped us get to where we are, and it's helped us make us strong. And so that's difficult for me to. But wow, it's a huge challenge for product development.
Sure. Looking back on the end of the Bally Williams days, and we saw the Pinball 2000 product, and sort of we didn't get to see where that was going to go. And now we see the modern pinball machine. We're starting to see LED screens in games, in Stern games even. And this is dying. Oh no, we're okay. Where does pinball go as far as adding technology? Because people will sometimes say things like, "Oh, there has been no new advances. We need to advance." But isn't part of the charm of pinball that it hasn't advanced? It's still a metal ball on a wood playfield.
Yeah, I mean, I think I tell my design teams that the ball and the flippers are sacred. Everything else is sort of up for discussion. And I do believe strongly that the game is under the glass. And so, I'm not a fan of technology for technology's sake. So it's kind of like, I've been very careful, and I've taken I've gone through great pains to sort of orchestrate our evolution. I want at the heart of the matter, we have to make fun, compelling games. And if you go out there to the floor, you'll find games that were made in the 30s that were fun and compelling. And they didn't have LCD screens, and they didn't have widgets and gadgets, and they were very simply, well-designed games where someone took a lot of time to understand, the kinetics of the ball and how they play the game and how they score it and how they balance it and all that stuff. So I'm all about, I don't want to make 18 things that are sort of good. I want to make 5 things that are great. Yeah. And so it's like I tell the designers all the time, give me 5 cool, great things in your game. I don't care about, 20.
With this rise of home purchases, do you feel pressure from a design side to do something that's different than the last few things you've done?
Well, every game, part of the criteria for every game is what is the point of difference. So every game design needs to have points of difference, and designers, like a painter or a writer, they develop styles. And so a guy that's just starting to develop games doesn't have a style. It's going to take him years to develop that style. Steve Ritchie has a style. I have a style. Dennis Nordman has a style. Right? I mean, it takes a long time to get that, and John Trudeau has a style. I mean, so we start out with, yes, you get to work and operate inside of your style, but I still want to see points of difference. I don't want you to just constantly rehash yourself, and so I push the teams to When you sit down in a new product concept meeting for a new game, there's a lot of discussion. Everybody's there, marketing guys, sales guys, executive guys, everybody representing all of the elements of the company are getting the presentation. And the conversations, deal with, what's going to make this, what is different about this game? What's compelling about this game? Why do I want this game? And so, it starts there.
How is an argument won if there's something that, say, the designer of the game wants in the game? Let's say Steve Ritchie dreams up something, and maybe you feel, you can do better. How does that get settled?
It's a fight, it's a fight. But these are passionate guys, and they're passionate about what they do, and they they fight for what they want, and Steve's one of the great fighters of all time.
Sure.
So him and I have had some, we've had some, screaming drag out, matches on different things, and so I think that the best guys know, they listen they have a vision, but they listen to the things around them, and they're smart enough to realize that our world is an ecosystem, and so you can't unbalance any part of it. You have to. The product has to be at the heart. It has to be fun and compelling pinball machine. And it has to be cool and attractive, and it has to draw me from across the room, and it's got to tell me a story, and it's got to do all those things. But it also has to cost a certain amount of money, because we have to produce it and we have to stay in business. And it has to be manufacturable, and it has to be reliable, and it has to be serviceable, and it has to be durable. And it has to, we have to be able to fit it in our standard box, and so many of them have to fit in a container so that we can ship them to Europe, and all of those, and it has to pass UL and FCC, and it has to do all of those things. And so those are the elements of the ecosystem, and you don't want to unbalance them. It's not in your best interest.
Is it possible that we've made pinball too complicated?
Yeah, we have.
You think so?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do we do about that? Because as a home buyer, I want to buy games for my home. I'm concerned about buying a game that won't keep my interest for a long time. Where is that balance? It's like a double-edged sword.
That comes back to give me 5 cool things.
Yeah.
That comes back to that. I mean, it's give me some of the best games that I've played, and Steve was talking about John Borg's Iron Man. Iron Man is a solid game. It's a very simple game. It's got 5 key rules. It's got one major device. It's an open play field. You can clean it. It's a nice game to operate because it's got a fast ball time. So you can and if you're playing it in your house, you can maybe set it up a little steeper and close in the in lanes and make it becomes a friendlier game. But that to me is I love the Terminator 2s of the world. I love the Iron Mans of the world. Those are simple, but yet they're fun. And that fun, compelling stuff is where we need to go. Just layers and layers and layers and layers of stuff. Wow, I mean, it's just it's a. What I've watched. You mentioned my career has spanned a lot of entertainment mediums, and the one thing that I think I can do what I do today because I've been in all these different places. Right, I was a toy inventor at a consulting firm in Chicago that sold toy ideas to all the major toy companies in the country. I sold Mattel. I sold toys to Mattel and Hasbro, etc. Right out of college, I worked at Midway Games. I worked on coin-operated video games. You mentioned Tron and Spy Hunter and stuff like that, right? So those were simple games from a different era. I designed pinball machines at Williams and Bally. I made novelty games for a while there, and so I think that the one constant in all of these things is that a good game is a good game. It doesn't necessarily have, I did Xbox 360 and PlayStation games at Midway for 9 years, and I saw the arc that those guys were on as something that they're just beginning to realize was somewhat destructive, where the games got so complex. It required so much money. The development teams are so huge. It takes $150 million to make a AAA Xbox 360 game, and to create 20 hours of compelling entertainment, and yet sometimes some little game that you've got
Candy Crush.
On your phone, right? Angry Birds, right? I mean, look at Angry Birds. I mean, it's like it's on your phone. You can't stay away from it, and it was like, wow, that's sometimes way more fun than that.
And the net's wider for that sort of game too. You're going to drag more people in.
So I mean, I think go back to give me 5 cool things.
Speaking of going back, something that Stern's done, bringing up Iron Man, and now with the Spider-Man Vault Edition, is reissuing games from the history of the company.
Yeah.
What's that been like? And I know Steve said earlier in his talk, he actually said about Spider-Man, he said, George did all the work. And that's a quote. So tell me about bringing back these games.
Well, it's a great thing for the audience and for us. So in a case like Spider-Man, the Spider-Man we're making now is actually functionally a nicer game than the one that we made in 2008. it's the same basic rule set. We redid all the dots, all the sound. I resculpted all the toys and re-arted it to be more like the comic book. But it's an opportunity for us to go back and fix things that maybe we didn't have an opportunity to fix, right? And now we've watched the game in the wild for, 8 years or
almost,
something. And we know what breaks. So I don't know if you noticed, but it's got hole protectors. It's got a piece of stainless steel underneath the Sandman plastic. I got rid of the side plastics on the slingshots. That's all stuff that was problematic in the original game. So it's that magnet that we invented doesn't wear out the play field. It's got that. It's got LEDs. It's got a lot of things. It's got the nicer back box. It's got, so it's an opportunity to make a nicer evolution of the game. And it's also, we're hoping that people embrace it as hey, it is the same, it is Steve's game.
The heart of it's
the heart of it is Steve's game, but it's the Vault editions are great because it satisfies a demand from the community. A lot of people that missed out on Iron Man originally have bought the new one. Some people even that wore out their Iron Man or that owned it for a while and moved it on and then decided they wanted it back have bought the new one, right?
Yeah.
And so the vaults are a great opportunity to make technical improvements and durability improvements. In some cases, aesthetic improvements. Spider-Man came out. I was very happy with how it came out. Those dots are great. The animations all hand animated, 100%, no digitized dots. So I was very, very happy with that.
And I'm assuming we'll see more of those in the future.
Yeah, you will. And it's you want to know what's coming. It's the usual suspects. You can pretty much guess. It's what people want.
Sharky shootout.
We try to give you what we try to give you what you want. There's even been some conversation that we can go really far back into the Stern catalog.
Stern Electronics.
Yeah, and so
what would that look like? What would a Iron Maiden? What would one of those games look like now? What would you do?
Yeah, that would be interesting. It would be fun. It would be a lot of fun.
Is there a market for that?
I think so.
Is there a market for that? You got a lot of yeses there.
You guys a lot of guys come and, Sea Witch. Maybe it's coming. I
just did Sea Witch. It's in Ghostbusters. Go look for it.
Yeah, so I think the vaults, and the other thing, the nice thing the vaults do too is that they're great. They're great product mix, and in terms of the factory, they buy us a little breathing room in product development to finish, to get further along on the stuff that we're working on. So the vaults do a lot of things, and then it's great to have this catalog of cool stuff to go back to. And I'm always impressed. Iron Man, the reissue, the Vault edition, outperformed all expectations, and I have high hopes that Spider-Man will do the same. And we have plans to do some more vaults.
Let's talk about your games. George has designed a lot of great games over the years, and I kind of want to go all the way back. 1994 Corvette. That is your first pinball design. What was the experience like the first time you sat down and said, "Okay, I have a blank piece of probably CAD software or paper, or whatever it was at the time"?
Well, it was kind of scary because I had actually, I was as a designer, I was an experienced designer. At that point in my career, I wasn't a rookie, but I was a rookie relative to pinball machines.
Yeah.
And so I knew my way around designing products and entertainment, and I knew my way around the materials and all that stuff, the manufacturing stuff. I already knew all that. I knew how to make the stuff. But pinball was a completely different and new thing to me, and it was kind of scary because at the time, Williams and Bally design teams were at the zenith of their power. So they were like, just this amazing creative machine, and they were firing on all cylinders. And that entire development group also included the video game group. So, and the video game group was at the top of their game. Those guys were like churning out, the Mortal Kombats and NFL Blitzes and NBA Jams, and those were happening at the same time. So you had this creative maelstrom of just this powerhouse.
Yeah, knowledge and power and experience.
All in the same building. So,
Yeah.
the bottom of the stairs where all the games got tested, that was the crucible. That's like sort of like, okay, if you make your game can hang there with, with guys like, Eugene Jarvis and Larry DeMar walking around, and Steve Ritchie and Pat Lawler, and you can hang. So it was tough for me to say, okay, well, I got to do something that can live in this environment, that can meet the expectations of the company. I had my entire team was a fresh team. So, I had a programmer that had never done a pinball machine. I had a mechanical engineer that had never done a pinball machine. So we were all new, and we were trying to make our mark, so to speak, in the world of the company. My vision for Corvette was that I thought that we could extend the sales of the product by appealing to a group of a market that maybe wasn't necessarily a pinball market. So I noticed that Corvette collectors were adamant and very, very engaged with their hobby. And so I thought, hey, there's all these garage mahals with, Corvette collections. And at the time, I had read, they're building a National Corvette Museum, and Corvette as a brand is this, it's got these, this incredible legacy at the time. What I think it was like 40 years of, or something of automobiles, and General Motors was way into this product. It was an amazing kind of energy in and of itself. And so I thought, if I make a great pinball machine, and I sell it to all the places that pinball machines typically get sold, but in addition to that, I grab some piece of those guys. Hey, that might be 1,000 pinball machines that wouldn't normally have gotten sold.
Absolutely.
And so I orchestrated the whole thing and timed it so that we launched the game at the grand opening of the National Corvette Museum in, Bowling Green, Kentucky. And, they had we had 6 Corvette pinballs, the first 6 in the wild, if you will, in the right inside the museum on free play to benefit a charity all weekend, 24 hours. And they were Corvette caravans from all over the country converging on the museum. It was this huge party of Corvette stuff and Corvette people, and the design team, we busted our butts to get this thing done by then.
Did you feel you got some of those results that you were looking for?
Yeah, we did, and we revisited the concept with Mustang. No surprise,
Yeah.
And so you saw the amount of energy that we got, with the 50th anniversary of the Mustang, and so I kind of knew that play. I sort of had, and I knew that piece of my, that page of my playbook, and so.
Let's talk for a second about bad movies and good pinball machines, because you have one of the classics, because there's a bunch of them, Johnny Mnemonic.
Yeah.
It's a great pinball machine. It stands up in modern tournaments, and it's a very great shooting game. What do you think about that one? It's
funny because, so I was actually a fan of the fiction. William Gibson was at the time one of the writers that I was reading, and Johnny Mnemonic is a short story inside of a collection of short stories called Burning Chrome, and that William Gibson had put out. And it's the guy was he's still alive. He's a visionary guy. I mean, he's a guy that he was one of the guys that that sort of created a visual for what the internet was or is. At a time when no one knew what the internet was.
Yeah.
So in 1995, the internet to the average person walking the streets was this really nebulous concept.
Sure.
No one knew what to do with it. No one knew how to, what will it be? And here's a guy that some years before had sort of given this a shape in a way in his descriptions and how he wrote the books. And the books, by the way, are amazing. They're great. They're phenomenal. I love the way the guy writes. Sometimes he's one of these writers that I find myself rereading. Okay, what did he say? Because it's kind of like,
it's dense.
Yeah. You gotta grasp it. But so when at the time the company said Sony's going to put $20 million in advertising this film, and the film's going to cost this much money, and they're spending this, and so I thought, well, I know the fiction, I know Johnny, I know Johnny's World, I know all that stuff, so I think it'll be a good thing. Things really didn't start to go, I didn't really get scared until I went to Hollywood and I got a screening. And before they released the film, and at that particular moment in time, I called Chicago and I said, "Can we get out of this?"
Oh no.
Oh yeah. And they were like, "What do you mean?" And I go, "Oh, this isn't good."
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we didn't get out of it. It's you bring that game up. I like the game a lot.
I do too.
I had a lot of fun with the game, and today it's a cult classic, right? I mean, guys approach me on this game all the time. Yeah. And I always tell them, I says, where were you guys in 1995? Because in 1995, we couldn't give these things away.
That's funny. You had done work in the console, correct me if I'm wrong, console gaming world with NBA license previous to working on NBA Fast Break.
No, it was the other way around.
Was it the other way around?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
so NBA Fast Break was your first.
Yeah, I did. NBA Fast Break was my first go around with the NBA. Okay. And had a lot of fun with that. I'd always liked basketball and kind of grew up playing basketball and stuff. And so so Fast Break was one of those things where I was actually working on a novelty game, which you guys have never seen or heard. Somebody bought the Whitewoods from me some years ago. It was called Armed and Dangerous. And it was a sort of a three-dimensional version of Hyperball. Okay. So you had a cannon, and and you could fire these 1-inch diameter plastic balls through the air at these tanks on a playfield. And you had one, and I had one when they were linked together side by side. And so the tanks on your playfield represented me, and the tanks on my playfield represented you, and whoever killed the other guy's tanks first won, right? And so that we created Whitewoods, and we got it shooting, and there was a lot of problems, and it was clear I wasn't going to make my schedule. But what was even more clear is that the sales guys and marketing guys came down to the studio where we were developing it, and they said, the problem with this is we don't know where it fits in the product line. It's not a pinball machine, and it's not, it's kind of a novelty game, but it's not a traditional novelty game. So they killed it. And so I had they said, okay, here, you still got to hit your production slot, even though you killed it. So now here's 3 months, the first 3 months of my schedule, they're gone, but I still have to hit my production date. So I called Roger Sharp and I said, go get me an NBA license. I know what to do. And the interesting thing is that the linking kit that we designed for Armed and Dangerous is what made us.
Is the NBA linking kit.
Is what's in the NBA linked.
Did you know from the beginning of the development of that game you wanted the scoring to be based on baskets made?
Right from the get-go. And that was the most controversial things that one of the most controversial things that I've ever done. Everyone in the Williams Valley pinball department hated that. And at the end of the day, it was a huge fight. And the most experienced game designers in the company were telling me I was wrong. And I fought for it, and the compromise that I made with management was that the game shipped with an adjustment so it could score. You could set it up to score 100,000 points, or like traditional pinball scoring, big scores, or you could set it up to scores 1s, 2s, and 3s. The cool thing about 1s, 2s, and 3s in that game is that I know exactly what it is that I have to do to beat you. I don't have to do any math in my head. You've got 35. I need 36. Yeah. So I know this shot's 1, this shot's 2, that shot's 3. Yeah. I guess I'm going to try to, I'm going to try to get a 3 and get some cushion in there. And so there's that. It keeps the game very competitive. And by the way, it's a pivotal. If you've ever seen 2 linked fast breaks get played, head to head, It's an incredible, high energy experience, and that scoring is what allows that to work. It's not the fact that the games are linked. I mean, the fact that the games are linked is cool, or is a technical necessity.
Sure.
But it's not what makes it amazing. What makes it amazing is that we're fighting for this score that is
easily seen.
It's just like a basketball game. There's 24-second shot clock, time's running down, I got to make my shot.
And to your credit, I've never seen an NBA fast break in my time that set the other way to the 100,000s and millions.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody sets them that way.
Thank God.
I know we don't have time to go through every game you've designed, but I do want to talk about a couple of the ones that I think you're probably most known for. First being Monster Bash. I mean, that's a game that there was this interesting time period for you guys at Williams we look back on where you were designing the best pinball machines possibly ever designed in the history of the industry, but business was sort of failing.
Yeah.
So you have these low runs of these great games, which has driven the value way up, and they're holy grails to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And Monster Bash is like right at the top of that list.
Yeah, it's, when we were standing around talking, I think guys that have heard me talk have heard this before, but none of us, every one of the game designers, all the guys that work for me, all the game developers, no one ever sets out to make a bad one. Yeah. Every game is hard fought, and guys are passionate about what they do. They pour themselves into these games. So I worked just as hard on Johnny Mnemonic as I did on Monster Bash. So, but sometimes the stars align. Ghostbusters is a classic example, right?
Theme, sound, music, shots, the whole deal.
And the team is energized and the team is into it. And Monster Bash was like that. It was a bunch of guys that we grew up watching creature features. On Friday night, was my parents' date night, and so it was like we got pizza. I was in charge because I was the oldest. Got to stay home, and it was like Johnny Quest, Man from U.N.C.L.E., creature features. Right, and so those are significant elements of my childhood, and those creature feature monster movies were those old black and white Universal monster movies.
Absolutely.
And they were, they were significant, and the guys that I was doing that game with, Lyman and Vince Pontarelli, the sound guy, and Kevin O'Connor, the artist, we all were from that time. We all experienced very similar. I mean, those guys are. Like I think Lyman and Vince are 10 years, maybe even more, younger than me, but they were still in that sort of, in that time frame. Yeah, and so we got into a room and we said, okay, we're just not going to scare anyone with these monsters. So let's have fun. Let's make fun of them. Let's take them on tour. Let's have a good time. And Universal, to their credit, they knew that. They want to preserve the brand equity of these monsters and all that, but they also knew that they had to allow people to a little bit of running room. So, the business of licenses is truly a challenge because sometimes you don't get any running room and you're stuck. And so it's kind of like, you have to work to, in a much smaller sandbox or in a much more limiting sandbox. But when we did that, Universal Monsters, those guys were great. They were like, we say we want to turn them into a rock band, take them on tour, collect them, and every character is going to have a figure, and they're all the characters on a playfield are going to do something, and it's going to be consistent with personalities that we create. Dracula is going to be the arrogant lead guitarist, and the bride's going to be the diva, lead singer, and Frankenstein is going to play the keyboards because of this action, right?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, and we're going to get, we're going to write a bunch of funny lines, I will mesmerize you with my semicircular motion, and all that.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun, so we were having fun making the game, and that, that's how you get amazing games like Ghostbusters.
Was it frustrating to know how good those games were when you look at that whole run there?
Completely.
And then see them not selling?
Completely.
Yeah.
I mean, you think back, like, Attack from Mars, like, I don't know, 4,200 games or something.
Medieval Madness, all
Medieval
these
Madness, yeah, Monster Bash. It was like, those were amazing games, and had we been making those games, 3 or 4 years before, those things would have run,
Big.
18,000 games, 15,000 games, no question.
I think when I look at the games that you designed in your time at Stern specifically, it's hard not to look at Lord of the Rings as sort of this kind of legendary game in a lot of ways, because it's one of the deepest rule sets into a game that has this amazing layout with lots of toys. It's really one that I think people look at as the standard bearer for the Sterns until maybe the last few. I think there's this shift where you're catching up to that.
Honestly, I'm very proud of what we've done in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I joined the company full-time in 2011, July of 2011. I started building the product development group, and literally brick by brick. There was not a lot there when I got there. And times were not, the company was on sort of on a recovery arc, a very slow recovery arc from the recession of 08.
Yep.
And in which the company almost ceased to exist. So, and I think I'm very, very proud of the games that we've developed in that time frame. But I lost my train of thought. Ask me your question.
I was just talking about Lord of the Rings and how.
Lord of the Rings. Yeah. So I think Lord of the Rings. The thing about Lord of the Rings is when I sat down to do that game, I was trying to. The very first playfield I did was kind of. It looked a lot like stuff I'd done before, and when I brought it in, I was a consultant to the company, so I was working on the outside, and I would bring something in, and when I brought that playfield in, no one was excited. No one was excited. And so I took the first whitewood and essentially balled it up and threw it out and started over.
Wow.
And when I started over, I said, I'm going to try to do, I'm going to try to break some of my own rules. And so just in terms of the geometry, and I wanted, I wanted to do different things with the toys. I mean, it's a rich fiction. And
Yeah.
I personally wasn't that into it. It was sort of handed to me as we really want to do Lord of the Rings. And Keith Johnson was way into it. Chris Grainer, who's here this weekend, was way into it. And really, they were the keepers of the flame of, Tolkien's fiction.
Yep.
And so, I think people have heard me tell the tale of, me talking to Keith one day in Keith's office and saying to him, dude, I think I'm going to put the big fire guy right here.
The big fire guy.
He said to me, that's the Balrog. The big fire guy.
The big fire guy. Yeah, that's what I said.
So I think Chris and Keith had a tremendous impact on what I get the credit as the game designer. Game designers typically, everybody always, the game designers.
You're the rock stars, yeah.
Seriously,
It's a team.
without those guys, the game wouldn't be what it is. And so it's kind of like it would be a piece of wood with some interesting toys and some nice kinetics, but
the story is told with the whole package.
The whole thing, yeah. And it's one cool thing about this, and there's the Strong Museum in Rochester, New York. If you're ever in Rochester, New York, you should go. It's an amazing place. It's a Strong Museum of Play. They basically are a real deal museum, about everything: toys, games, pinball, video games, etc. And they have one of my whitewoods. They have one of my Lord of the Rings whitewoods in the permanent collection of the museum. I gave it to him. It was my personal whitewood. I gave it to him, and the guy said to me, can you do you have any more Lord of the Rings whitewoods? And I said, yeah, I've got some more Lord of the Rings whitewoods. And he said, well, can I have them so that I can show the arc of development? And I said, well, yes, you can have them so you can show the arc of development, but they're all going to look the same because I got that one right the first time. The first time after I balled up the first one.
That's great. before we end here, I just want to ask you one last thing that somebody asked me to ask you. Are we going to see another George Gomez designed pinball machine? Will
Absolutely.
That happen?
Absolutely. You are. And it just takes me a long time to do one because I have, because my day is, really spent running around helping facilitate what my guys do. And so it's a full-time job to manage the design teams and to get the product and I mean, all those things that I talked about, just to hit all those, check all that stuff off is a full-time job. So I am designing. I design every day when I can find the time to do it. It's just that imagine, a guy like Steve Ritchie or John Trudeau or John Borg, those guys, they go to their office every day. And it's funny because I look at this and it's such a luxury to me right now. The notion that you would go to work every day and have nothing to do but design one game.
Yeah.
And so it just takes me a long time because I can't, I just can't.
Well, we look forward to seeing it. I really want to thank you for spending some time with us, and I appreciate you guys all being here to listen. This will end up as a podcast for Coast to Coast Pinball, and let's give George Gomez a hand tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. George will...
That's great stuff. That's what I do this show for. I am so privileged and am thankful for the opportunity to get to chat to George about pinball, his career, his games, and man, what a lot of fun. Really great evening. Thank you guys for listening. I've met a lot of fantastic people here at Texas Pinball Festival who listen to the show, and I appreciate that more than you know. Until next time, take care of yourselves, be nice to one another, and play some more pinball. Later.